So first up, we have phase 3 data from Johnson & Johnson that was released last week. In the United States, it had a 72% efficacy. In Latin America, 66%. In South Africa, all the way down at 57%. I don't think that's really too surprising, considering there's new variants in South Africa and Latin America, and this was designed to express the original spike protein. So it's not too surprising to see lower efficacy in South Africa and Latin America than in the United States. Overall, 66% efficacy when you sort of average those three out based on how many people were in each of the areas. Interestingly, they only looked at moderate to severe COVID-19. So the other companies that have released phase 3 data for US studies, Moderna and Pfizer, and then BioNTech, have all looked at all forms, including the mild form. So any thoughts on why Johnson & Johnson didn't include mild?
Yeah, I guess, Brian, some people might immediately think, oh, they're just trying to boost their overall efficacy numbers. But I don't think that holds water, because remember, there would have been plenty of mild cases in the placebo group as well. My best guess is Johnson & Johnson was just focusing on the important task at hand, which is to prevent the spread, prevent infection of moderate to more severe cases. I think that's probably what they did, but I don't think they actually came out and explained why they chose not to include mild cases in their analysis as some of the other companies did. Have you come across anything the company itself has stated about that?
I didn't hear anything. it was sort of surprising to me. I didn't even notice it until somebody else had pointed it out in the press release.
Yeah, there's no reason to think that their efficacy would have been higher or lower necessarily had they included mild cases. I think we just don't know.
Yeah, I think the issue is, well, maybe if it's not, and we don't know, but maybe if it's not working quite as well, then there might be just as many mild cases in both of them. And so, if it's working but not producing enough antibodies to keep people in the mild state, but not producing enough antibodies to keep people from having any symptoms, right? So we're talking about symptomatic COVID-19. So if you're not symptomatic, you're not going to get the test, and therefore you're not going to test positive, even though you may actually have the virus in your bloodstream.
I did see that J&J said that their definition of moderate cases was if a participant had any one of several different symptoms that they had on a list. They didn't provide that list, at least in the statement that I saw. But so one of those symptoms would classify someone as moderate. So, some of these companies' definition of mild to moderate could be different than the next company's.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I think that, obviously preventing disease is the most important. If everybody's only getting the mild cases, then it's really not as bad of a issue. It's not as bad of a pandemic as
exactly. If every case of COVID-19 was mild, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now.
Right. We'd be talking about the cold, the common cold, basically.
Yeah. You and I would be having a totally different discussion this morning.
Right. And then for the effectiveness, it was at 66%. Moderna and Pfizer and BioNTech have been closer to 95%. I think it's kind of hard to read through because there's so many new variants that are circulating, and this clinical trial was run later than the other ones. And so I think it's hard to compare that 95% to the 66%.
Yeah, it is. And remember, this is a single dose vaccine versus 2 doses for both Pfizer's and the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine and the Moderna vaccine. I'm trying to remember, Brian, I think the Pfizer vaccine after the first dose achieved maybe a 52% efficacy or something like that. So Johnson & Johnson's results are significantly better than what we've seen from a 1 dose, the single dose of Pfizer. So I think that's the thing to keep in mind, that a single dose vaccine, there's definitely some advantages, and this isn't necessarily bad efficacy at all for 1 dose.
Yeah, and they are testing 2 doses, but I don't think that data is expected until late summer, early fall. So that'll be that's going to be a while. And I'm not sure that we're going to get as much of a boost from the second dose as Moderna and Pfizer and BioNTech, just because of the way they're designed. So Moderna, Pfizer, and BioNTech are all using mRNA, where Johnson & Johnson is using an adenovirus to deliver the DNA, which then gets made into mRNA, which then makes the protein that our bodies react to. And I think that there may be a reaction to that adenovirus as well. So the second dose may also attack the virus before it can get into the cells, and that may have some problems with boosting the second dose.
Yeah. Brian, I think some people might have been disappointed when they saw the Johnson & Johnson results. What was your take? Did you think it was disappointing, or do you think it was middling, or what was your take?
The FDA has always said 50% is enough to get an emergency use authorization. So certainly anything above 50%, anything above, in the 66% range, I think is, and especially the US at 72, if we don't start having variants, I think is pretty good, and certainly going to help reduce the spread. And as you're reducing the spread, then that ultimately will help us get rid of the virus.
Right.
I think that, obviously I'd rather have 95% for everything. So I think it's disappointing in that respect, but probably not disappointing in the overall scheme of things. If it gets more people vaccinated quicker, then it's helpful.
Absolutely. I hate to put it this way, but I think in some ways the public might have been spoiled a little bit by seeing those stellar results from Pfizer and Moderna already. And I think the expectations were raised maybe abnormally or too high, higher than they should have been.
Yeah. I think I was saying that after Pfizer and BioNTech did theirs before we had the Moderna results, which is there was like a week or something between those two, but I was saying like I was 95% too high, and then they come out with basically almost the exact same results.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's not too surprising given that the text would say.
And of course this, but I think just in the historical context, 94% efficacy is outstanding for a vaccine. Our flu vaccines are maybe in the 60% efficacy range, something like that. To have something that's 90% or higher is absolutely fantastic. And we had 2 brand new vaccines come out with that kind of efficacy. And I think maybe many people may not realize just how good that really is.
So wrapping it up here with Johnson & Johnson, you think it's enough to get an emergency use authorization from the FDA?
Absolutely. The single dose, I think there's a big need for a single dose vaccine. I think it will sail through the emergency use auzation process. What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Anything above 50% is going to get through without a doubt. So, and there weren't any safety signals that would make you think that it wouldn't pass.